Hey everybody, it's Carm here with the director below me. He's telling me I'm on my own. He's in one of those moods, so back on a Thursday afternoon. Wanted to come on and do a response of sorts to Christina, the Vinyl Guru, who just came on earlier, issuing another challenge to show your self-titled albums. Albums by an artist and or group. It's named after them. So just grab three things real quick, give them a little listen. It had been a while for a couple of these, and I just want to kind of weave it into what I normally would do on a Thursday video. So starting right in, Terry Ripdahl. It's his ECM debut. He'd done an album before this and a lot of different projects. Which, before I forget, if you don't know Jeff's channel, Calico Silver, by all means check him out. It's wonderful. Great technical analysis, blend of that as well as deep passion, knowledge and enthusiasm. Probably the biggest Terry Ripdahl fan I'm aware of, even more so than my buddy Gary and I. And he's been doing wonderful reviews of his albums, and also a huge Bob Dylan fan. So I know he did a video on this, and I've been meaning to get back around to revisiting this. And it's just wonderful. I mean, if you know Terry's work, throughout his recording, it was always fascinating to hear the differences or the approaches he would take to some of the most delicate and ethereal music, as well as something harder edged, noisier, rockier, maybe even chaotic. But on here, there's an incredible balance between those areas. Really weaves them in seamlessly. This is from 1971. It has other who were to become the future luminaries, so to speak, on ECM. He had Terry himself on guitar and flute. Inger-Lise Ripdahl on voice, who I believe was his wife. Jan Gabarek on horns. Really a very, very raw at the time, before he kind of had that more patented, refined sound. Bobo Stenson piano. Harold Anderson, who I've been listening to quite a bit of lately, electric and acoustic bass. And late great Jan Christensen, Gary's favorite drummer. Early example of him on here. And starting off with Keep It Like That Tight. Starts off with this very slowly, gradually unfolding groove, and just builds in intensity as it goes. Jan coming on the horn, and getting a little bit rockier overall, as in rock music, but kind of a free form rock with jazz and a little bit of his classical leanings, which of course he's a classical composer of chamber and orchestral, even way back when. And then, again, where that kind of balance comes in between the power and more subtle and delicate playing. Rainbow gets into much quieter territory, very kind of, it's almost kind of willowy in a way, willowy and wispy, ethereal. You almost imagine being in like a meadow somewhere, but it's not quite as tranquil as it appears. There's a little bit of, there's something going on there. There's something lurking beneath the surface. I think even in his quieter, more ethereal moments, there's always a little bit of that tension there, like a little bit of ambiguity as to what's going to come next or what the landscape's going to offer. I kind of hear that throughout his output, but you really hear it, again, that balance on this first album. And Electric Fantasy, fascinating, very, again, very ethereal. Her voice, the way it's used, she sings on here, it does have that kind of mysterioso quality, that kind of alien landscape to some degree. And I really like the use of the woodwinds, the oboe and English horn of Eckhart Fintel. Again, adding kind of that pastoral quality, but slightly, it's not your typical day in the countryside sort of thing. I'm not sure what's coming next. And that gradually builds into something a little more, what sounds a little more free form, a little more dense, but still kind of retaining those original qualities, just those shifting colors and landscapes that he's so good at. Lentano, I would say, I don't know, not really into ascribing certain terms to think, it's kind of I think of it as abstract impressionism, where you're kind of going between those, not just stylistically, but just the kind of tone and feel of it, almost like pure soundscape on that. And then Tough Enough kind of gets back to the earlier rooted approach that he took at the beginning, even getting pretty funky at times. It kind of brings to mind kind of an early 70s, those kind of crime dramas, where you have the protagonist wearing like a trench coat and hands in pockets, and the pork pie hat and cigar, and they're peering around a corner and they see the bad guys and they start chasing them, down an alley or something, and it just has that feel, but not, it's not true dramatic. It almost has like a lighter feel to it, and it's just again, you hear all those different little surprises and approaches that he takes. So really, an incredible debut here on ECM, and a really example of just how he balanced things out. Just, fascinating and a great place to start if you're not familiar with him. And next up, Group 87, a band I've been into for quite a while, and the individual members I've enjoyed for a long time, and been to them for many years. You have Mark Isham on brass, electronics, and keyboards, Peter Maunu, guitar, keyboards, violin, and Patrick O'Hearn on electric and acoustic bass. One of my all-time favorites there. There's a lot of his solo albums. And you hear them here at the beginning. I think Terry Bozzio is also on drums. I think it was at least Terry and Patrick who played with Frank Zappa in the late 70s, and Peter Wolf on piano. I'd say kind of an instrumental rock, somewhat electronic, very cinematic, appropriate, being that Mark Isham went on to do a lot of soundtracks. Kind of starts off with this kind of celebratory anthemic quality that you would have heard in like a lot of the sports, kind of like Wide World of Sports, the intros, and when they're showing the highlights, but not those kind of cliches that you'd hear in that. It goes into there's a lot more variety to it as they go. The way they build up, it's another group that has a nice balance between almost hard rocking at times, but also getting to something has a slightly chamberish vibe, or like the orchestral possibilities with electronic instruments, but doing it very subtly and with great balance. The first couple of cuts are like that. Frontiers 1856 gets into something quieter and more reflective. And it's not just because of the title, Sublime Feline. I'm a little partial towards it, but I really like especially that piece, the kind of contours of it. There's a lot of very catchy riffs, melodies, and hooks in the music overall, which I think would make it accessible to someone who normally isn't into instrumental music, especially if you're into more straight-ahead rock, where you want to hear the vocals and lyrics. But this would be for someone who maybe has a hard time with, to me there's no sense of a void not hearing the vocals and lyrics. They have enough surprises and changes, I think, to sustain interest. I'd like to think, even though I'm obviously partial towards instrumental in general. The Bedouin has that kind of feel to it, and just throughout, just the themes, they're just very compelling. Really good traveling music. One of those things that would be great to drive to, go for a nice, as the landscapes are changing, the music is kind of going that way. But a really nice debut here, and I feel like any of these musicians, from what they've done in their solo albums and other projects, it's fascinating to hear where they started here. But very much recommend this. If you like, again, pop, rock, and just those various approaches of the time, You know, and it sounds, in a sense, it sounds 1980s, but it could be, 20 years later too at times. So, yeah, definitely recommended. Hearing them at the beginning, Group 87 from 1980. And finally here, one I hadn't played in quite a while, and sure well known to just about everyone watching. Paul McCartney. I think I was prompted to get this originally way back when from Shannon, her early channel. It was Light Breeze 55 early on. She had done a couple of videos on McCartney. Might have been like one of them might have been a ranking video. I was compelled enough by the way she spoke of him to if I'm out and about and I see one of his albums, or I'll pick him up. So I mean, I have this. I have Ram. I have the second. I think I have the second McCartney too. This one for me really stands out the most, which I find most appealing for my tastes, being that I generally like albums where you have the one artist mostly playing everything himself. I believe Linda also, she sings on here. But the artist in the studio, just kind of exploring all the possibilities with various instruments and just trying different things out. You really hear a sense of the joy of creating music and just exploring. And again, of course, he had the Beatles had broken up just before this, and just hearing what he's doing on his own, taking that that solo band approach, or solo from the band approach. Of course, I always like these again with the collage and the gatefolds like this. Kitty there looks like my first one, Charlie Bird, baby version. But yeah, really, really enjoying this. It had been quite a while since I played it. For me, Hot as Sun glasses, which I think are kind of like two pieces in one in a way. Man, We Was Lonely and Mama Miss America particularly stand out. Just the way he approaches things. I like the keyboard playing on here too. Being inclined towards that, the organ, some of the organ on there, just neat little touches, And the groove of Mama Miss America is really fun. The bass, I like his approach on there. And of course, there's Maybe I'm Amazed. Of course, everyone knows, and I know I've heard since I could remember. All those songs. It was always playing around the house, and there was a show called Breakfast with the Beatles on one of the stations for years and years. It might still be on Sundays, so they would play them, and I'd hear his solo stuff way back when. So, but, yeah, enjoying this, and I'm thinking of mentioning traveling music. Lately, I've been doing a lot of, at least a couple times a week, I'll just jump in the car and drive south for like an hour. It's a particular open road I like to take, and it's just really nice, pick certain tunes that are perfect for just the open road. And as I'm revisiting this, it reminds me this will be another one nice to take along, find the CD one day. But yeah, I mean, you all know this so well, I'm sure there's not much I could really say, but maybe on further listens. But yeah, I really like the tone and the feel of this, and yeah, again, just for the most part, just the one artist exploring everything on their own early on, and I like the kind of raw quality to it. It's just very, he's not doesn't seem too concerned about really making it, a real polished statement. It's just, just a love of playing. So it comes through on this. So yeah, McCartney. And yeah, so the self-titled ones here, response to Vinyl Guru. And maybe at some point I'll do, I'll find some more and do something of a follow-up, because I'm sure I have more self-titled albums. And yeah, that's what's playing in the background. Not sure how well it's coming through. Tom Middleton Life Tracks. Another one of those blind/deaf buys from a while back. Yeah, kind of nice, electronic for the most part. Yeah, so you enjoyed whatever you could hear of that. So yeah, just wanted to do a response, and I think it had been a while since I'd done a regular Thursday video, so it'd be fun to kind of weave this in. So yeah. So yeah, check out the Vinyl Guru. Check out Jeff if you're not familiar, and of course Shannon. Check them all out. Really enjoy visiting with them. So hope we're all well, and director here is see how feisty he continues to be. It's one of those days. But, hope we're all well, and to the next one. Peace, love, and joy.